All right, friends, it's T, and I'm back with a new video, and it's on Vitruvian guy, the Vitruvian Physique. So yeah, I don't know. He just posted this video. I'm gonna do a reaction to it, to this gym lifting slave, and I don't know. Let's see what he has to say. So Vitruvian Fitness says, how to build 50% more muscle, new science. Okay, a new science, how to build more muscle without eating. Yes. So a new study to tell you how to build 50% more muscle, eating the exact same thing that you're adapted to now. Your one bowl of Cocoa Puffs that you've been eating since you first started. And somehow you're going to build muscle if you just stretch it now in that one bowl of Cocoa Puffs. Okay.
The researchers at the University of Brazil did in 2022. The researchers at the University of Brazil did an interesting experiment. They had people.
They did an interesting experiment. How to build muscles without eating. Okay, can you actually visually see them, Vitruvian, or is this like under a microscope?
Do calf raises on a leg press machine, except with one.
Okay, yeah, it's eccentric movements. Yes. They're not holding the stretch, dude. They're actually going back and forth. So that would most likely may cause a micro tear in there, possibly. But at some point, after the first adaptation, remember, unaccustomed exercise is known to cause widespread muscle damage. But what happens when it becomes trained? It's protected now. There's no more damage. After that first bout of damage, there is no more damage. So there's zero growth. Okay, dude? There's zero growth.
A very important difference. One group did their regular.
I'm not saying exactly there's zero growth. Providing you eat to mass up those myofibrillars, you have to eat. You got to be in a positive nitrogen balance. Okay.
Standard calf raise or calf press, while the other two groups did a half range of motion specific.
Yeah, half range, and then they did the upper range. We already know that concentric movements do not cause muscle damage. It's the eccentric, it's associated with muscle damage and a stretch in the myofibrillar. There's a stretch there. It's kind of obvious, okay?
The bottom portion or the top portion, the top half of the calf raise. Now,
yeah, if you're raising to the top, that is concentric. And what are you getting there? Nothing. You're not getting anything there. You're gonna get better at moving heavier stuff. There's nothing going on there. You're not gonna cause any damage to build any muscle. You need the damage to build muscle, but you're not building muscle because you're not positive nitrogen balance. Man, I don't know, man, what people are thinking out there. Look, Drew, slave diets do not build muscles, okay?
If you're anything like me and you subscribe to kind of like more old school traditional bodybuilding thought process.
Yeah, of course, old school. It's thought. Yeah, steroids. Yes, that's the old school thought. Yeah, steroids. Yeah.
Processes. Half reps, half muscle, right? Surprisingly, not. In this group, the
half reps, half muscles. What? How does a rep build a muscle? What are you talking about?
Actually saw that those doing the bottom half of the exercise, they actually saw more than double the muscle growth of the other groups, including the guys actually doing the
15.2%. Okay, 14%. Okay, so that's like, if you don't even understand this graph, 15.2%, can you visually see that mass? Can you see that muscle growth? Can you actually visually see it? Or can you only see it under, I don't know, a CAT scan?
Full range of motion. Now, as weird as this may sound, this actually does start to make a little bit more sense because this takes advantage of a sort of new-ish style of training, a sort of new training concept which has been making the rounds on YouTube called
stretch-mediated hypertrophy. Stretch-mediated hypertrophy.
Stretch-mediated hypertrophy.
Stretch-mediated. It sounds more like you're pumping up to load more of the slave diet in there called carbohydrates to create sarcoplasmic muscles. Okay, whatever.
Stretch. Now, right off the bat, listen, trust me, I know this topic can get fairly complicated, but after spending
complicated, this is hilarious, man. Come on.
The last like a week or two researching it, I am now going to simplify the shit out of it for you. Because let's be honest, you guys probably don't want to watch a 2-hour.
This is just the latest fad by the fitness industry. Now, go and stretch your muscles. Do these exercises. Stretch them. Go like this. Stretch them. And you're going to build muscles out of a stretch. Magic magically out of thin air on that Cocoa Puff breakfast cereal you've been eating since you first started lifting. Yes.
Or lecture video on muscle fascicle length extension via
Hyperbilateral sarcomero.
All you cheap people that don't eat food, that can't build muscles, are never gonna build a muscle with that stretch even, regardless. Cocoa Puffs ain't gonna do it, dude.
Genesis.
What the hell is even that?
So in the simplest terms, you can sort of think of the muscles on your body kind of like rubber bands stretched across your joints. For example, when it comes to your biceps, it's like a rubber band stretched across the elbow joint. Now,
Yeah?
when you lower the weights or
Really? It is? Okay. What happens when you bend that rubber band?
cable or machine or whatever, that rubber band is stretching, but then on the second portion of the lift, it is going to shorten and contract to lift the weight.
Of course it's going to shorten, then it's going to stretch again. It's going to shorten and stretch, shorten and stretch. And what about it?
Back up. Now here's where the cool part sort of kicks in. There is growing evidence.
Isn't that what everybody's doing in the gym already? Shortening and just shortening and lengthening like a rubber band. That's the whole point, right? That's what everybody's doing in the gym. And the fact that it's reserved, it's actually reserved for muscle damage, but none of you are getting damaged because, man, it's protected by repeat about effect. You're just not getting damaged, bro. It's protected, and I don't know anybody that's doing unaccustomed exercises in the gym to get this damage to come back, but whatever, man. Hey, I don't know. Whatever. I don't know. People are just wasting their time there. I know. They're eating the slave diet carbohydrates and they're loading carbs in the muscle now. They're building muscles in the gym, right? They're building carbohydrate muscles in the gym. Look, Mom, I'm getting pumped. Look, Mom, I got a pump. I got transient pump. Yay, okay.
That you can actually trigger additional muscle hypertrophy more.
You can trigger additional, but don't you have to be in a positive nitrogen balance? If you are if you're triggering more, what are you triggering exactly? Damage? Like, how are you triggering more muscle growth? Just by stretching it, how are you triggering that? What's going on there exactly, dude?
Muscle growth if you emphasize this portion of the exercise when the
So if I emphasize that part, I am initiating more growth? I'm what?
muscle is at its most stretched position while simultaneously holding on or resisting a load, whether that be a dumbbell, a cable, a machine, whatever. Now specifically there are four.
And then it's going to magically grow because I did that? It's going to how's it going, which way is it going to grow? Is it going to gain mass on the myofibrillar, or is it going to damage and then repair and remodel? Like, which one is it going to be? Like, which growth factor is happening here? Because you never really explained it.
Studies which I want to illustrate today. The first two were targeting
Okay, what does the study say? What type of growth was this?
the triceps. Essentially, people were asked to perform two different exercises, one per arm. The first one was a regular single arm cable tricep extension, and this
Look, dude, in NCBI, it says protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown to see that mass visually on that myofibrillar. So I don't know what you're talking about that a stretch is somehow going to build mass on the myofibrillar. What is he talking about? Look, dude. Let's bring this up. All right. If mass is going to, if muscle is going to gain mass, listen what they say. If muscle is going to gain mass, because that's what you're all going to the gym for, right? To gain mass, right? Then protein synthesis must exceed protein breakdown. So I don't know what he's talking about. A stretch is going to magically grow mass. If you're not exceeding protein breakdown, if you're not exceeding that, which means positive nitrogen balance, then how is that supposed to grow? Like, what's it gonna grow on? I don't get it, but whatever, man. Okay, I don't know. I'm so confused. Why doesn't he do it? Why doesn't everybody else do it then, if that's the way it works?
The second one was very similar, again, single arm cable tricep extension, except it was done in the overhead position. See, the kind of cool thing about the triceps is that there are
But how much growth is it going to give you? Here's another thing. Okay, let's just hypothetically. Okay, so you stretch whatever, and he says it's going to give you growth, whatever. So when does it stop? does it only give you growth the first time you stretch it, and then it doesn't give you any growth anymore? So they gained 15.6% growth by stretching it. And then what happened? Did it stop? Did they get any more growth? What happened? Did they adapt to their Cocoa Puffs? What happened?
3 heads to the muscle, hence the name triceps. And one of these heads, specifically called the long head, attaches not on your upper arm, but actually on your scapula. This means that when you raise your arm over your head, it actually puts that long head of the tricep into a slightly stretched position. You can do this at home. You can do this right now.
Okay.
Lift your arm and you can actually feel your tricep, like there's a significantly more of a stretch right now as opposed to this and as opposed to that. Both of these studies actually saw significantly more growth in the arms doing overhead tricep extensions as opposed to the alternative. Now when it comes to the other studies I mentioned, they essentially did some.
And so, okay, so you reach 15%, whatever this is, and then it stops and there's no more growth? So it only happens once and then that's it. You get a speck of growth, like a tiny little bit, and then that's it. And then it rapidly adapts, right? And then there's no more growth. So it gives you that much according to your Cocoa Puffs that you're eating, and then there's no more growth after the first stretch. Okay.
Similar except with other muscle groups. For example, in the hamstring study, it tested lying versus seated leg curls. Now, don't get me wrong, both are excellent exercises which do very sufficiently target the hamstrings, except based on the anatomy of your hamstring muscles, when you're doing this exercise in a seated position, this actually like already prematurely or preemptively, or I have no idea. My wife always makes fun of me for being ESL, and here I am giving her more ammunition. I can't wait until she watches this.
What?
Whatever. Seated version equals slightly more stretch. You get the picture. This is because your hamstrings insert on your pelvis. They pretty much attach to like the back of your ass. So when you sit up as opposed to lying down, this already preemptively puts your hamstrings into a little bit of a stretched position. You can even push this forward by essentially leaning forward even more so when doing the seated hamstring leg curl. And once again, similar to the tricep study, the group doing the preemptively stretched version of the exercise, the seated version, they did see a bit more muscle growth. Now, don't get me wrong, both exercises
They saw a bit more muscle growth and then it never grew again. Okay.
still worked. Both exercises did put muscle on the test subjects. It's just that one of them did a little bit more.
Yeah, but can you visually see it though, dude? Or you can only see it in a DEXA scan or something. A CAT scan.
What I find really interesting is that even like all science aside, if we just go back in time to like the golden age of bodybuilding,
Oh, back in time to the golden age of steroid, faking it, fake muscles by steroids. Yes, okay.
I feel like those guys already intuitively, they kind of knew this. I vividly remember guys like Frank Zane, Lee Haney, Arnold Schwarzenegger, all of these guys really talking about the importance of going like all the way down, getting that full range of motion, and really getting that deep stretch on like dumbbell flies, bench press, squat.
Really, they did, really? They didn't need any of that, man. They didn't care. They took drugs.
You name it.
They took drugs and they got a cosmetic look. Okay, dude?
Squats, you name it. Okay, we get it. It seems like working out with a bit more stretch on the target muscle is a nice little fitness hack to, I guess, build more or build faster muscle. But does that mean that we have to change everything? Do we have to radically, like, rethink everything we know about bodybuilding and just throw this out the window? No. This is because unless you are training like a complete jackass with terrible exercise form and even more terrible exercise selection, you are probably already taking advantage of this more stretched focused training. But that being said, if you really want to be on the safe side and you want to really maximize your gains, here are 3 simple practical tips that you can incorporate into your training like today if you want to take advantage of all of this scientific mumbo jumbo. Number 1, this is truly the final nail in the coffin for anybody who trains with anything other than full range of motion.
Okay, man. I don't know. This is really getting boring at this point. Full range of motion. Okay, whatever.
All the guys out there, they go in the gym, they load up like 500 pounds on the squat. They proceed to squat down like a quarter of what they should realistically be doing they don't realize that because of their massive ego, they are inadvertently cutting out the main portion of that exercise, of the squat, which actually puts the quadriceps under the most amount of stretch and thus is the most productive part of that exercise. Same case for like the bench press, for example. And this actually is a point of a little bit of personal pain and personal embarrassment because I used to be this guy. I vividly remember when I was like 15 and I was working out in my high school gym, I used to do this bullshit where I would only go like halfway down pretty much, and I used to say, oh well, you don't need to go any deeper, you don't need to touch your chest as long as your elbows hit, you know, perpendicular 90-degree angle and blah blah blah. Fortunately, by the time I hit grade 12, I got my head out of my ass, dropped the weight by like 20-30 pounds, and actually started doing full range of motion, bar to the chest every time. Number 2, there are certain variations of some exercises which might be superior at putting that muscle into a more preemptively stretched position. This is especially true with certain muscles which cross over 2 joints as opposed to 1, which is a bit more common. We call these biarticular muscles. Now, how you take advantage of this is, like I've already mentioned earlier, for the hamstrings, you want to do them seated leg curls as opposed to the lying down version. For triceps, you want to do some overhead work, and then biceps are another good example of this. And one of the ways that you can take advantage here would be to do essentially curls where your arm is slightly behind the body. This would be great. Examples of this would be face.
Yes, you're gonna magically build doing this. Okay, yes, okay. I've seen people do all these things, and they don't have anything to show for it, but whatever.
Away cable curls or incline dumbbell curls, where you actually sit on a bench with a slight inclination or a very high inclination actually, and you do curls except your arm is literally behind your torso, putting the biceps, and you can literally feel it when you sit down and you put your arms back into a slightly more stretched position. But also, one thing I really do want to get across to you guys is that I am not saying that these exercises, that's it. They should now be your bread and butter and you should throw away everything else out the window. I am just saying that if you're not doing any of the exercises I mentioned, like if you go in the gym and your standard typical training, tricep training week is just like standing, you know, regular cable tricep extensions, 2-arm cable tricep extensions, rope cable tricep extensions, everything done kind of like right here, that's fine, don't get me wrong, but it also probably wouldn't be a bad idea for you to substitute one of those exercises with an overhead alternative, whether it be 1-arm or 2-arm, or you can do it with a dumbbell. There's multiple ways of doing it. Number 3, for most exercises, it's probably a good idea for you to drop the weight a little bit, maybe slow down a little bit, and really emphasize that stretched portion of the lift, which unfortunately is the exact opposite of what I see so many people in the gym doing. I will see so many people every week get onto the standing calf raise, bounce up and down as fast as possible, doing like 30 reps, getting a grand total of like 12 milliseconds of emphasis in that, you know, time under tension in that stretched position, and then proceed to complain about how the calves are really hard to grow and it's genetic and blah blah blah.
Why did Lisa dump me? Is it because of my small calves? They're the hardest place to add mass.
Okay, first of all, you're not wrong. It's actually really hard to grow the calves.
Man, I've seen a lot of people jumping up and down. I don't know why they think it builds muscles. It doesn't build muscles, man. It shrinks your muscles. Lifting shrinks your muscles.
Genetics aren't that good. No! But even then, you training them like crap, it's not exactly helping the situation. These people would be much better suited, in my opinion at least, to drop the weight like 20%, slow down the movement, and actually spend a little bit more time going through the full range of motion, particularly in that
But why exactly? Because they're gonna grow? Is that it? Magically?
bottom fully stretched position. Okay, I know I said 3 tips, but screw it, I have a 4th bonus one.
Whatever happened to muscle damage?
Do you remember way long ago, 6 minutes into the past, when I talked about that study at the beginning with the people doing calf raises and they're doing partial range of motion? That is actually a sort of new-ish style of training on its own. We call this long length partials. Essentially, the belief was that if that portion of the exercise, the stretch...
Is that what we call it? We call it long length partials. Oh, okay. That's what builds muscles. I had no clue. Vitruvian Physique, you are a genius. You're my hero. You are my hero, bro.
Portion is the most like hypertrophy inducing. What if you just like did only that and essentially
Wow, it's the most hypertrophy inducing. So what happens when you do all this stretching, all this lifting, and you're eating carbohydrates, and it's loading in the muscle as glycogen, giving the appearance that you built muscles? Then what? Are they real or fake?
ignored everything else? Examples of this would be like in the lat pull down. This would be sort of like the first half of the exercise. On the bench press, this would be the sort of bottom portion of the exercise, or essentially when your elbows are at or below 9.
See, I always believed that bodybuilding, that was meant for muscle damage. That's reserved for muscle damage. I don't know about any of this stretching stuff, but whatever. You want to stretch muscle to try to get it to come bigger out of thin air. Okay. Go ahead. Go and try that. I don't know anybody that's going to do that in the gym. They're already stretching it, going up and down. There's a stretch right there when you're going up and down, okay?
90 degrees. And then for things like the bicep curl, this would pretty much before your elbows make a 90-degree angle. It's sort of like just this sort of first half of the motion. And there's actually a considerable amount of research that has come out.
Everybody is already doing this, though, Vitruvian. What's going on? Why aren't they getting bigger?
Showing that this is an effect.
Oh, wait, they are getting bigger when they shovel more of those carbohydrates down their throat. Yeah, that's it. This much protein, a little piece of meat, and tons and tons and tons of carbs.
Technique, potentially even more effective than traditional full range of motion training. But that being said, before I really jump on the bandwagon and call this like the new holy grail of training, I want to wait for a little bit more research before I really recommend this to you guys. One of the reasons, pretty much the main reason behind this is because although all of this new evidence is pretty cool to look at, pretty much all of it has been done exclusively with fully untrained individuals, those with almost no.
There you go. I knew it. I knew it. Untrained individuals. And what do untrained individuals get, guys? You all know this. What do untrained people get? Untrained individuals. Let's see what they get. Here we go. Here we go again. Untrained, right? So I believe it's this one here, right? Acquired by overload exercise, precedes hypertrophy, not lost on detrained myonuclei. Okay, here's untrained. Here's this map, the famous map right here at the bottom. Zip on down to the bottom. There we go. You see that map right there? Untrained. See that? See where it says untrained? First training, satellite cell fusion, hypertrophy. But then when it atrophies and they detrain and they retrain, nothing happens. They didn't lose the nuclei, right? They didn't lose any of these fibers or these myotubes or nuclei that were created by the satellite cell fusing, and it hypertrophies again. See that? But it's a really tiny bit of hypertrophy, small amount of hypertrophy. So they were all untrained, like he said. Yes, untrained, right? And we also know that unaccustomed exercise is known to cause what? Widespread muscle damage. But trained people never get damaged. That we know. Okay.
No or completely zero training experience, which has led some critics to say that this sort of like long length partial training is only a newbie phenomena, essentially speculating that maybe after your first 6 to 12 months of lifting, it no longer really gives you any additional benefit. However, luckily there actually is a study testing this theory.
Why doesn't it give you any additional benefit? You want to know why it doesn't give you any additional benefit? Because this is why it doesn't give you any more benefit, dude. Here's why it doesn't give you any more additional benefit. Recent advancements understanding repeated bout effect phenomenon. The protective effect against muscle damage from what? From a single bout of eccentric exercise. Jesus, a single bout, it already protects from any more muscle damage. Jesus Christ, that's just terrible. Look, the repeated bout effect refers to the adaptation whereby a single bout of eccentric exercise protects against muscle damage from subsequent eccentric bouts. Man, that really's gotta suck, doesn't it? You can't build muscle because you can't damage it. It's protected. It won't damage after a single bout of eccentric exercise, and it's over. It's already over before it even started. Oh my God, that really sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, too bad, Vitruvian. Good luck on that one.
Theory right now. When it's done, this study will be the first of its kind to specifically test long-length partial training in trained subjects as opposed to newbies who've pretty much never picked up a dumbbell. It's being run by these guys, one of which their name you will probably recognize because I have talked about and used him as a source on this channel like 400 times over.
Oh my God, like these guys are the major source. Oh my God.
The last 8 years or something, and it's actually also being funded by Jeff Nippert, and that's pretty cool.
Nippert.
So again, props to these guys. To summarize, number one, you working out with a bit more emphasis on the stretch.
I guess money in the bank for them, right? Hey man, guess what? Go and do these stretches now. Yeah, okay. But guess what? There's nothing going on after the first stretch. Unfortunately, after the first stretch, it's ended. It was all on untrained individuals, by the way. Untrained.
Probably a good idea. Does it necessitate massive changes to your training? Probably not. Unless you train like absolute crap, in which case, yeah, for you it might be a bit of a change. Number three, full range of motion is awesome, especially when done with a nice deep stretch.
This is just all gym lifting slaves now. They've all turned into gym lifting slaves. Just wasting their time lifting weights forever and ever, chasing something elusive that has ended a long time ago.
Shit is better than you losing your virginity on prom night in a threesome to you, Sydney Sweeney, and a clone of Sydney Sweeney.
Sure.
It is the shit. Number four, there are certain exercises which already preemptively put yourself into a bit more stretch, and it's probably a good idea to work them into your training at least every now and then. And finally, long length partials are an interesting up and coming style of training, and one that ideally you want to look at for a bit more research, specifically with trained subjects. And when their research is published, you can bet your boy will do a video on them. I'll probably do it like a month late, but I will do a video on them, yeah. All right, guys, that's it for me. Thank you for watching the video, especially if you made it this far. One thing I do want to mention before...
Yeah, I didn't think I could make it that far. Thank God for that, man. Shkee. That really was hurting. Okay.
Before I kind of sign off, two things actually. So number one, my protein is kind of...
Please do sign off. Thank you.
Boosted my code temporarily. Usually it's 40%.
No thanks. No codes for me, man. Anyways, you guys tell me what you think about that. Like, subscribe, support the channel. Are you going to go out and stretch yourself? Stretch to high heaven. Stretch forever. Unfortunately, it doesn't work after the first bout. Like he even said there. He even mentioned it. Oh, well. Too bad for that one. Oh, it was all on untrained individuals. Are you guys untrained or trained already? Oh, I guess it's not going to work for you trained people out there. See you in the next one. Ciao, friends.